Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
You find yourself in a tavern.
Yo, we should have checked for traps.
I knew he forgot something.
I think I can reason with him.
You killed his father.
Can I have sex with it?
You could certainly try.
I'm gonna touch a sword.
Don't touch the sword!
The child is evil, right?
Obviously.
I could cast Fireball.
Always cast Fireball.
All right, roll for it. Welcome to Friday Night Quests. I'm your host and Dungeon Master, Jay Jones. Last week we concluded our Flashback adventure starring young Linus Whitaker and his friends, the students of Alaric Lavont. This week we sit down with the cast and talk a bit about playing evil characters, and then Mike and I discuss the genesis for this season. We're taking a few weeks off for the holiday break, but the Velvet League will return on January 19th for part 1 of Season 20. So, without further ado, let's get to our conversation with the cast.
Love playing evil characters. They're
I hardly
always
ever
a little...
get to.
That you hardly ever get a chance to really play truly diabolical characters, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're on the side of evil, but they usually have some ulterior motive. They have some other pressure forward, and that's always much more interesting to kind of tinker with than someone who's just, we have to help them because of right.
Yeah, right. Because it's good and just.
What is, have each of you played an evil character before?
No.
Only once before, a long time ago. Most of my GMs don't allow it because it's a little rough to try to
Have a
push
party with an evil
a
character.
functional party forward, because there's usually that
Because
one
everybody's
person-
trying to like backstab each other
Yeah.
and do their own side things. That's true. What was the character you were playing in the evil campaign?
I got to play a barbarian.
Oh, nice.
Who was
What
a
was
chaotic evil barbarian. He was just straight up bloodthirsty. He would pick any fight you could pick.
Jeez. What was the evilest thing your party did in that campaign?
Not that much, actually, because I was simply a wrecking ball of a character. I wasn't the moral compass of the party. I was much more like a linebacker they would call in to just have no qualms to end something.
Just crush
So
anything?
I think the most evil thing we ended up doing was like theft. I think we like stole some horses from someone. That was really, as far as my character personally, there was a lot of killing prisoners.
Wow.
And a lot of, yeah.
Michael, what about yourself?
I mean, my only experience of being evil characters comes from being a DM. So
Right, yeah.
you get lots
What?
of chance to be evil
That's
characters.
true. I thought you were alluding to DMs being evil characters.
I mean, somewhat.
Yeah. Some terrible things to do. And Mike, did you ever play an evil character?
Yeah, Daniel ran a game for us back in college where we all played supervillains.
Oh, nice.
And but it was very much like the bad guys trying to stop an alien invasion, or like that had already occurred. So it was like kind of like a rebellion kind of game. So we were evil, but we weren't like that bad. We were mostly like fighting worse people. But even in the group, we had like different metrics of like, well, how evil is everyone? And like my character was like mad scientist evil, and there was one that was like misunderstood robot. So it's kind of like, it was challenging back then to figure out like what is exactly the balance of evil characters to still wanting to contribute into the team game that is a role-playing game.
Nice. So I gotta ask, kind of like a post, like an old 80s movie where it's like, where are they now? Like that little like Breakfast Club, like fist in the air. He went on to be a banker. With the story of Alaric Lavont, he is eventually caught because of Linus turning on him. But the crew goes on their own separate ways. I want to know from each of you, how does Yvette, Braddock, and Markus either die, or how does the rest of their life go? If you guys can think. Whichever one of you wants to jump in. We know where Linus is currently.
Yep.
But I'm curious where you guys think your characters ended up. Did they die? If so, how? Or did they get caught? Or are they still out there?
Well, I think Yvette, as soon as Linus betrayed Alaric, she kind of bounced from that group and escaped the capture and went and somehow became like the baroness of a small town where she has like a dungeon that she tortures the villagers or like any travelers on very regular occasions.
Oh, wow. So she has like the reverse adventurer setup, like she waits for adventurers to come and then tortures them?
Exactly, yeah.
Countess Bathory over
The Countess
here.
Bathory, yeah, you got it.
Jeez. Nice.
What is the Countess Bathory? I don't know that reference.
Oh, it's the countess that bathes in virgin's blood to stay young.
Oh, yeah.
She's also the most successful female serial killer ever documented.
Correct.
Fun.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, with the bathing and virgin blood thing, yeah.
I think she's got it's something like 800 kills to her name.
Oh my
I believe it.
gosh.
Wow.
That's
That's
what
a
I
lot
can
of
do.
kills.
Before the townspeople basically went, no!
800 is too many.
798 was fine, but
But that extra 2. Braddock, what about his end or his journey?
In the takedown of Alaric, when he is caught and in the betrayal, Braddock eventually slips away from whatever tussle that was. He goes off, mostly pursuing various studies, and eventually he is documented as having slipped through a portal into another plane and has not been seen or heard from again.
Ah, very nice. Very nice. And Michael, what about Marcus?
I mean, I'm pretty sure Marcus just continues his edgelord ways. So
now
I'm assuming he probably dies from getting in over his head, thinking he is the best at killing everything.
Oh, wait. I got to know, what is the heist that goes horribly wrong for him? Like, what was he attempting to steal that definitely
I mean, he
killed
wasn't
him?
trying to. He was probably like, I'm the
assassinate,
best,
maybe.
and I'm trying to assassinate people. Maybe he killed people before, and then he just like tries to kill like a mayor or something, or like a burgermeister or something, and just gets destroyed. Like
19 arrows in his back.
Exactly. Like on a pedestal, just like,
Yeah.
I got this, no one can see me.
And some say if you listen real close to the wind, you can still hear him falling off of roofs.
yeah. I mean, every time I come around, people fall over in Greece. So
Amazing. All right, guys. Well, thanks for playing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, good game.
It was good fun.
Dork. It's me, Mike Christensen, and I'm sitting here with Jay Jones.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, thanks.
We just heard the Flashback adventure where we went back to Sweeney's life as young Linus Whitaker and followed him and Alaric around a little bit.
Yeah, they had some goofy adventures. Weren't
Just-
they goofy?
Just a wacky old
Yeah.
humdinger of a time.
Ah, man, it just fills you with so much happiness and joy, especially around the holiday season.
We're going to take a couple questions from fans, but before we get to those, just let's start with how this adventure came together. I think we may have discussed this a little bit
Yeah, I think we discussed this
in the last
loosely.
in the last aftermath, but let's just go ahead and dive into how it began, basically.
Sure, yeah. So we always wanted to kind of take a look at Linus's past, especially because we had talked about Alaric quite a bit, especially around when we first introduced him back in Season 9, and then even more so in 10 when we actually met him. But because I knew Alaric was coming back into the story, and people didn't know until the end of Season 19 that was going to happen, there was always an idea of like, well, could we go back and meet Alaric and see what this relationship actually was like? This wonderful, very healthy relationship
Yeah.
that Alaric had with Sweeney and at the time Linus, which nobody can understand why Linus, aka Sweeney, just has so many problems with the guy.
He's just, they had such a tight familial bond.
Yeah.
You know, he's the kind of guy you could confide in and share things with, specifically because you would share with him the things that you stole, because if you didn't, he would torture you with magic.
Mm-hmm. Just like any good family figure.
And yeah, you and I had a lot of discussions about how we should kind of do the format, and
Yeah, there was a lot of like, what should this be like? First it was like, should you run it and I would play Alaric?
yeah, there was some discussion of that. We could never really find a version of that we were happy with.
Yeah, because then it's also, I still like having creative control in terms of like some of the things we want to reveal and how it ties into stuff later on.
Yeah.
But also, it's just kind of weird and clunky to have Linus in a story where you're not playing Linus, but you're also the DM, and I'm playing Alaric.
Or if we're going further back, then like we would need to determine a lot of things about Alaric that like maybe aren't that important
No.
because they're pre-Linus things, and
which we don't need to.
yeah, we just never really found a version of that we liked, and then it just came about like, well, let's frame it so Alaric is basically the person giving you the mission at the beginning of an adventure. He's your NPC sharing with you like,
And he's a really trustworthy source.
Mhm,
You know, he's the guy you want giving you the mission info.
exactly. And I had actually written up a lot of notes back when, I think it was around leading up to Season 9, when we knew we were doing some sort of trial. Like, I think we knew probably before Season 7, like there was going to be some sort of trial of Sweeney, the
and
trial of Linus
some
Whitaker.
conversation was going to come up about Alaric, because obviously a lot of the stuff that Sweeney did when he was younger had a lot to do with Alaric.
I would say 99.9% of the things that he did were pretty Alaric-centric for the first 19 years of his life or so. So I had a lot of notes of like actually people that he rolled with, and I was like, well, maybe Jay will use these as potential NPCs, or maybe I'll be able to borrow them for like characters that I'll play if Sweeney ever dies. And then he ended up dying a bunch of times, but I'm still playing Sweeney because of magic. But there were even characters, a couple of the characters that we had in the show were directly lifted out of those notes. Specifically, Yvette and Braddock were both in that original document.
That's correct.
And it was funny because they weren't exactly designed to be level 1 characters, but because we knew we needed to flash back and be like, all right, we got to kind of make this a game now, we had to kind of scale them down to more angsty kids with some magic, which is why the third character is not at all what was in the document, because that character like needed to know polymorph, which a level 1 character can't know.
Right.
So Michael was just like, I kind of have this other idea of like this guy who's just like the shittiest little teen, and like.
And here's the thing, Alaric and his court, like that court probably didn't stay intact for the whole time.
No.
Chances are our sneaky assassin kid might have gotten a little bit too big for his britches, because I kind of view that as like very early days when the worst stuff hadn't happened yet.
I would say, yeah, not very, very early, because like he's...
No, not very, very early.
But like it's right around when the shine is coming off the apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we get into back in season 9, we talk a little bit about some of the worst stuff that happened, right?
Yes.
Like with the girl in the eye and like some of the things in the different towns.
There were 3 major events that are a part of Sweeney's life that we knew prior to recording this adventure.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of them had already happened. I think him trying to steal something from Alaric and having charm person cast on him so he thought he could fly, that has already happened.
Because you can see in the story, like especially how you played those interactions, that Linus already like had a little bit of like a shakiness about like, all right, maybe don't mess with Alaric.
Yeah, he's a little gun shy. And then the other 2 major events are when a member of the court stole from Alaric, withheld something, and was forced to harm herself as a form of torture. Very, very grisly, gruesome.
Pretty brutal scene, which I believe we recalled in season 9 in the court.
We did. That has not happened yet. And the other major event is the burning of the town. Like the complete, scouring of that town.
Yeah, which was kind of the final straw for Linus.
Yes.
Yeah, so this was kind of like an in-between. Like an Empire Strikes Back, if you will.
Not
like a Rogue One, if you will.
I get not that. I don't know. Kind of a flawed analogy.
Yeah, I know.
And this actually brings us to a fan question that came in from Amanda. She said, I'm curious about how little Linus Whitaker ended up with such evil kids, because they obviously belonged there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that comes into a little bit of what we were discussing, is that they were not always the pack of evil kids that they were becoming. I think that... Two things. One, I think Linus was with Alaric probably from when he was about 6 or 7. Like he was
really young.
He was, a child on the streets for most of his life prior to that point. He was an orphan just in the streets of a big city. Alaric found him and saw he had some aptitude for magic and plucked him up and had him as one of the members of this court, probably one of the longest running, if evidence bears out. But then you also have the fact that the tone of Alaric and their adventures changes as time goes on.
Right. He starts to get a little bit more bold with his, his goals and his desires. And, it's kind of like, what if I could do this? And it's like, I can. All right. What if I could also do this, though?
And possibly with how much he's involving the kids. Because there's also some of that, like, he might be doing some of that behind the scenes, and we weren't really present for it.
And as you can see from this adventure now, there were other kids that you can kind of see that, like, Alaric has been trying this game for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this new court of his is kind of like his most recent edition of Court of Alaric Lavont.
Yeah.
And he's kind of tweaked things here and there, right? Like the first time around he tried this, he might have gone a little bit too hard, maybe a little bit too soft. And like, that's why he is kind of grown with this court along the ways.
Exactly. So when you ask, when Amanda asks how he ended up with such evil kids, the kids are becoming more evil as time is going on due to the influence of Alaric. But I think there's also something about how he's recruiting kids, and maybe as time's going on, he starts to recruit kids differently. I think Linus may have been recruited out of more convenience.
Right.
Whereas others may catch his eye because of their...
But I think also because we've kind of established that he's done this before, I think, and this is in my own way that I approached it, is that Alaric has gotten better at pulling out of the kids what he knows they want and using that as a carrot.
Yes.
Like, for example, at the end of the adventure, he knows, played by Michael, he knows his character, when he gave him the cloak, he knows that there is a desire there for him to kind of feed into this, like, shadowy character.
Yes, he knew that, like, Braddock is not going to be the one to get a lot of use out of the disguising thing. I'm going to give this to Marcus, and also rewarding Marcus for
doing a pretty terrible thing.
Yes.
And you can see that, like, he's probably done this a few times before this adventure, and he knows, like, for Linus, he probably needs to be a bit more direct, aka, hey, want to go flying for a little bit?
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, he's a monster. He is obviously perfecting his ways of manipulating people.
Yeah. Before
he starts to, and when we find him in season 10, he's taken his powers to a whole different level and is doing some real messed up stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, we're starting to see the genesis of that in this adventure.
When we finally reached the format for this season, and we kind of knew it was going to be Linus and his friends sent on a mission by Alaric, how did the rest of it come together?
A lot of it came together from, like, I think we had, like, a light discussion of, like, it should probably just be, like, something very simple, like a simple adventure. But we also talked about this being a Bahamutmas episode. So
yeah, that's right. That was the other thing that really,
this was the other big
brought us together.
Like, we wanted it to be Bahamutmas Central. So, obviously it especially has a feel towards it of kind of like the Grinch stole Christmas of, like, basically Alaric being the Grinch, but, like, coming to a town that, like, he presents it in this lie of, like, they want to keep people out, they're very greedy, they're full of themselves, like, we're the heroes, like, we need to find shelter in this monstrous town, right? He's still, even though some of the kids are evil, he's still shielding them from that, like, absolute truth of, like, look, we're all monsters and, like, we're gonna go mess with this town.
Right.
So, but, like, before he's gotten there yet, he's still shielding them from that. And obviously it's him tricking them into taking over the town. And also the idea was, like, well, we're going to have, like, a wizard there is going to be an old enemy or an enemy for them to go up against, which is always fun, right? Like, that old concept of, like, a wizard's tower, like, what's in there? And that also allowed me to, like, do, like, just a fun, simple adventure.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to just... I like having, like, self-contained, like, what would I do with a wizard's tower? And it's like, we could have a room like this and, like, an octopus and, like, changing, like, artwork and stuff like that. A wizard's tower, like, gives you the option to, like, Doctor Who it. Rooms can be bigger and smaller. Like, you can do whatever you want, really.
And also, because it is a wizard's tower and we're dealing more with traps and things, it's a much easier thing to scale the difficulty of than a level 1 encounters, which can turn fatal so quickly.
Oh, God, yes.
Especially if you roll like we did.
Yes,
because,
indeed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We did not roll well for the first half of the adventure, I would say.
That all the octopus stuff was so... I was like, well, this could be most of them die right here. Canonically, Linus's first death is by an octopus.
Fortunately, it did not come to that level.
I thought there was a very real chance we were going to lose one of you in that first trap area.
I really thought Marcus was done, especially when Braddock closed the door on him.
Which I loved. From like a character perspective, I was like, oh, this is great. Feel bad for Marcus, but pretty funny.
But it made sense. It also helped sell, like, these kids are not
nice.
Yes. The other thing that I think is interesting is that we had a Christmas adventure where a bunch of people break into the house of a child and he defends himself against them.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
kind of like Home Alone, kind of.
Kind of like Home Alone, kind of, yeah.
Well, as you know, Mike, I never take influences from anything that's in actual media.
Yeah,
so
it's true. Everything that comes to Jay is just natural.
Completely natural and original. It has no... doesn't make any homages to anything.
Yep.
But, and yeah, that was the other part of it that I was very excited about is the kid. Is this being like, it's an old man and an old wizard in a tower, and you gotta get this old man, right? And that's for these kind of like kid adventures. That's very much like the classic, like, he's just a crotchety old guy, and he like won't let us have fun and go to the town and enjoy ourselves. Like, it's a very much a kid's perspective Christmas tale, right? But obviously you get up there, and the dark truth of it is it's just a kid. It's just a kid older than them, a little bit older. And then the worst part being that, a previous student of Alaric. And obviously none of that stuff he said was true. He's just a bitter, bitter guy.
Yeah. Yep, pretty much. I'm going to move on to the next fan question we have from Archangel. He asks, how did you enjoy a party of all the same class characters? I like how you put specific challenges to an all-mage group, like using shadows as monsters. What were some other examples of how an all-mage group could have overcome your challenges?
So yeah, I really enjoyed writing an adventure that's just for all wizards. I'd actually never done anything like that before. I'd always done DMing for like varying party groups. And when you do that, you always have to think about like, I very much, when I write an adventure, try to cater to the party that I'm writing the adventure for. Like I think on a few of the Aftermaths, we've talked about the Four Feathers campaign, right?
Yep.
And that was very much like I had the idea of the story, but almost everything I tried to mold and work around your characters. I do that a lot in Friday Night Quests as well. I always think, how does Izzy and Horace and Sweeney approach this problem, and how can each of them like actually provide like input on solving it, and either one being valuable. So I think about that a lot. So with this one, it was very much like, all right, just they're all magic users, and they're probably going to approach it differently with different kinds of magic, but it's still, at level 1, your library of magic skills is not too diverse.
No.
So I really enjoyed setting up these very physical traps that are, because wizards, they don't like small, self-contained areas that they have to engage in physically.
Right.
So all of the traps very much had that physical element to it. I think we talked about this on air. Did we talk about what the milk did? Down in the
I don't remember if that was on air or not.
I don't think we talked about it.
We should get into it now. Yeah,
we can talk about it right now. And the very first trap, quote unquote, was, there was the cookies and there was the milk by the fireplace. And obviously one of them had the cookie. I forget who had the cookie. It was
Yvette.
Yvette had the cookie, and that was obviously giving her exhaustion. And it was like, okay, I can drink the milk. And then the milk was, the trap there was it was going to like kind of suction to her face so that she could not breathe. And, get it kind of like almost like glue to her face. So that again is a very physical action. Getting it off is strength based. So for wizards who don't typically drop all those points in strength right away, that's going to be a more difficult challenge. Same with obviously an octopus pulling you underwater or trying to get you.
Yeah.
A more physical challenge. The shadows having to strategically move through a room might be more crafty and easy for like a monk or a rogue, not so much wizards. So when there's 4 of you and you can each dump out so much magic, like so much magic powerful potency, I think a good way to skew for a challenge is, because you guys are quadrupling up on that corner, I want to level it out by giving you more physical tasks. So then when you're using your magic, you're more or less using it to balance out the physicality of the trap. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I was really excited about setting up all these different trap rooms for you guys, and I had a lot of fun with it.
And that actually brings us to our other question from Archangel. If you could do another one, what same class group would you want to do next, and what challenges could you put against them, or cool interaction could occur? Maybe an all-paladin group on a plane of eternal war, for example.
Ooh, an all-paladin group is fun. I wish I could see more paladins in groups, and then I guess an all-paladin group would definitely do it for me.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I like that a lot, just because, it's kind of the other side of it. You're getting a little bit more physicality with that one, so I think you could do a lot more tricks. I think if you kind of use that as a template, like whatever the party is significantly really strong at, add a counterweight to it, right? Give it some more magical elements, so then they have to use their physicality in more creative ways. So I'd love to see something like that. Honestly, and maybe it's just because I'm partial to the class, I would love to see an all bard adventure, and you could make it like a magical battle of the bands, and you could have the 4 party be in one band, and they must battle against other bard bands out there, or they're solving a mystery in a Battle of the Bands type scenario. But I think that would be something that could be really fun, because at like a concert, you've got a lot of opportunities to charm people and a lot of opportunities to do some cool physical stuff in an open room. Like, and bards are kind of like in that middle space where they do a lot of magic, but they can also do physical tricky stuff. So I think you could have fun with that, definitely. But I would love to do an all bard group.
To answer your question from my side, there are only two right answers for the most diversity you can get out of one class.
And I was actually going to follow this up. You are currently kind of playing in this sandbox right now.
I am. I am running an all druid game, and it is a very interesting class because the druid is so diverse.
Yeah.
The bard is the other answer that I had as well. I mean, I think you can do the benefit of 5th edition and how versatile a lot of these classes are is that a lot of these you can do multiple of the same class. At lower levels, it's a little harder.
Right.
Like level 1 wizards, we're all very similar.
Magic missile.
Yeah, and there was only so much diversity of spell that we've kind of had. So ideally, if we did another one of these, we'd want to be at a little higher levels. You know, 3rd, 4th, 5th level is kind of that sweet spot because you get the 3rd level spells, which really start changing the game in interesting ways.
And other things to consider too is recently with the new release of Xanathar's Guide to Everything, basically with that release, you've got that kind of like Player's Handbook 2 going on, and you've got a lot of new subclasses for a lot of the different ones.
And a ton of new spells. There's an article that went up yesterday when this episode comes out. The article went up on our website on December 21st, where I went through and I reviewed every new spell in Xanathar's Guide. Just by far the longest column I've ever written in my life.
I would certainly believe it.
And there are some really interesting ones in that group as well. So yeah, I would say that is a really valuable resource for anyone really getting into the game, especially if you're creating new characters. Like, that is a really fun book, and there's a lot of fun stuff in there. The Bard and the Druid have, I think, the most diversity of where you can go with them. The Bard is very much a jack of all trades, and you can do a lot of things, as evidenced by the fact that we had Stu the Maniac Wellington as a wrestler who was a Bard.
That's true,
because he was such a versatile class. The Druid is really interesting because, and I write about this a little bit on my column as well on the website, but one of my players constantly goes into beast shape. Like, he's in the same circle as Izzy is. He's Circle of the Moon, so he constantly goes into the dire wolf form. It's his favorite. Meanwhile, one of my players is Hillary Levi, who's been on our show a couple of times.
Yep.
She plays it much more like a wizard. She never changes her spells once she selected them. She totally could, but she decides, no, these are the spells I selected. I'm going to make these work. I'm going to select them going forward. And then you have just, two other types of druids that play the game differently from each other, and they have different favored spells, and one functions more as a healer because he's, I think, Circle of the Shepherd, and there's some more sort of healing stuff in there.
Nice.
So the druid is really interesting and versatile, and I just hit the level where they start summoning animals, and I knew what I was getting into. I knew when we had an all druid group this day was coming. It just means I'm gonna have to work harder to kill them.
Yeah, because, man, when they can all summon animals, it can really stack.
Yes.
We haven't seen it as much in Friday Night Quest because Izzy focuses a lot on, like, turning into animals.
Yeah.
She had a sprint there where she was summoning, she was summoning lefty and righty, and she was summoning, I'll always remember when it was, she was underwater and it was, like, 2 octopi versus a great white shark, which was always fun.
But she almost always summons in pairs.
She does. But when you get into the crazy stuff is where you and I have seen in our own personal games where you'll have a druid who'll summon, like, was it like 8 ferrets?
8 wolves.
8 wolves or something, and they all get advantage.
Because they're all within a group of each other.
They all do a million attacks and just kill everything.
Yes, it becomes basically like the skeletons overwhelming the elephant in the background of Return of the King.
Yeah, and
or Piranha, basically.
Like, well, I guess that villain was gonna be difficult, maybe.
Hey, man.
Hey, druids.
This is druids.
They got it all.
They also they have a very broken healing spell from Xanathar's Guide to Everything that is so broken.
Look, man, they draw their power from the earth. The earth is pretty big. It's going to hit you in the face with it.
Another question, kind of coming back to Sweeney's characterization, from Amanda. She asked, I was wondering about how Sweeney's alignment has changed. What was he when he was with Alaric? What was he after? And would you say his alignment has changed again being with Horace and Izzy?
I mean, I definitely believe his alignment has gone... I would say that it probably has had 3 meaningful changes. I would say, he had... And you can probably speak a little bit more to what this alignment is, but the way that I've seen it narratively is, obviously, he had a very different alignment that evolved when he was with Alaric.
Yes.
Probably pretty bad.
I think in the one shot, I had him listed as chaotic good.
Right. And then... And by the way, that was still very early stages. And also... Linus, aka Sweeney, never got to a place where he was like,
exactly,
like stabbing people.
No.
Obviously, the deeper the Alaric hole went, it was almost more like the farther he was starting to pull himself out of it.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure you have like a nice overlap somewhere, but there's going to be like the very next day, it's like a splash of cold water or fire in some cases. That like, oh wait, this is all very bad.
Yes.
These are bad people. And then I would say when we met him first in FNQ, at the very beginning, I would say he was definitely one way. In my opinion, after Alaric's death, there was definitely a character shift into the second season. Not dramatically so, but at least it felt like there was one.
You mean in year 2?
Yes, in year 2.
Yes, I think that mechanically he's been lawful neutral the whole... Or sorry, not lawful neutral. That doesn't make sense. He's not Judge Dredd. He's been chaotic neutral since day one. That has taken different forms. I definitely think of him, yeah, you're right, and a little bit more...
And I don't mean like he actually shifted a group. I mean like
right. I think
he's been leaning more one way than another.
It's funny because there have been times where I have almost marked him up to chaotic good. Because there have been times when he's definitely like the voice of reason, and like he's like, no, I'm the good guy here, and I'm going to try to, whatever. And then like a season or 2 later, he will like cast Fireball on a Dryder to kind of interrogate him, or cast a bunch of attacks at that woman he'd cast Feeble Mind on. And like after that, I'm like, oh, wait, no, never mind. Maybe evil instead. No, I think chaotic neutral is kind of that good.
That's the thing. Like, and this is how I've seen it. Since Alaric died after season 10, he's kind of started to slip in a bad way in the opposite direction. Like, especially if you look at, the season where you guys fought an army.
Yes.
And you were, maiming a woman, like, out in the field of battle. And sure, like, there was battle, but this was at a point where everybody was well aware that you could just arrest that person.
Yes.
And Sweeney was like, nope, I don't leave anybody else alive anymore. And it was just like, this is pretty dark.
Yeah, he went rudderless after Alaric died, and we didn't see it manifest itself in really harmful ways until that season, I think. Because often he is a voice of reason. He's trying to game things out. He's trying to kind of predict where things are going. He tends to take a step back and kind of analyze things. But he also enjoys dicking with people and showing up to Bahamut Miss dressed in the colors of Tiamat or what have you.
So nice.
Yeah.
So nice to do for the family that's given him a home and protection.
Maybe we now understand why he doesn't like Bahamut Miss.
Yeah.
But there is that sort of side of him where he has seen a lot of devastation by his own hands. And I honestly still feel like Sweeney has a really hard time believing that he is capable of being redeemed for those things that happened. I think he really doesn't think he should be alive because he died fighting Alaric. Sort of. He died prior to the fight, but he kind of expected going in like that was how he was going to end, and he didn't. He survived the fight with Alaric, obviously, as we've seen.
Which, like you said, I think has given him a little bit of a rudderless, like, because I'm sure to a certain extent, Alaric has been such a large part of Sweeney and Linus's life that once he died, he's been kind of like this, I don't want to say beacon, but in terms of like, okay, I'm not this person that exists in the world. Like, I'm not going to do this because it reminds me of this person in the world that I hate.
Yeah.
But when that person is now dead and you are post that person being in the world and you can't point to that anymore, he doesn't have that black and white. Not that he was black and white before, but it's not as easy anymore with him being gone.
Yeah, and I think we've also seen it kind of culminating in like season 16 when he was getting shit-faced drunk, and because it was the anniversary of his death, sort of in a weird, he lost some time in the Feywild kind of thing. Like it's still weighing on him very heavily. and he's enjoying his time with Jiggy-Hor, what time he has with him, but like he doesn't take that very seriously. You know, like he's got this weird sort of detachment from things that is...
What? He gets detached from the group sometimes?
Well, no, not even from the group, or from like the world at times, and he's having to fight that pretty regularly. So I think he's on the upswing now that we're kind of like have a task. I think Vect really helps galvanize him as like, okay, this is something that we can do. We can address this. We can kind of deal with this. Like the Moondrop Lilies thing was similar. Like he was pretty well behaved in seasons 11 through 14, like once we got home, and then like we kind of started to
the league as
spiral.
A whole, as soon as you guys don't have kind of like a focal point,
yes,
everybody gets a little wild.
Yes, I think that is fair.
But man, I hope we answered that question.
I think so.
I think we did.
I think we did. The last question I have from a fan here is from Boo at the Space Hamster on Twitter.
Great name.
Will there be a chance to see what has become of the other members of the party after this adventure? Talking about the Alaric one-shot here, all the other members of Alaric's court, or has their story been told?
I believe that for the other members, I do like the people in the party. I think there was quite a bit of fun going on and a lot of different dynamics with those characters. I would certainly say, like, yeah, we could write up another fun adventure for them, but in my opinion, I mean, it's definitely at its core, like we're seeing part of Linus's story, and I think that's really important. And seeing how his story is told through the eyes of the people he travels with and the scenarios he goes through. So I think that's important. We could definitely do like another one shot in the future of them for fun, like what other kind of shenanigans did that party get up to? But in my opinion, I think we got a lot of each of those other three characters and what they're about in that story. I think everybody had a chance to really shine in different ways, not only with the encounters and the combat, but the personality and the character traits. Like, don't get me wrong, I love just playing this game, so if I have any excuse to write up another one-shot for those characters, I think we could. But in my opinion, I think we got everything really that was exciting and in terms of depth out of those characters in that story. Agreed.
I think if we were to do another story with them, it would be another... Linus is working with Alaric and maybe on the fence, which I think we kind of have, and you know, we kind of know what that looks like. Going and telling their stories after Alaric, I don't think would be as interesting, because then it's like we need to find other kind of who are the other characters around them. Part of what made them engaging to watch was how is, I think, you know, maybe being biased here, but how is this going to shape where Sweeney is going?
Right,
You know?
and I think that's how that whole story was framed, right? And I think that's why even that story is better served to be having Alaric being kind of the one that gives you the mission instead of being on it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about Alaric and what he did and what his thoughts and emotional personal choices are. It's more about what's going on with Linus and how the environment he grew up in made him the man that he is today.
Yeah, I think that we had a great time playing with all of those.
Oh man,
those performers. I think
they were incredible. I had a great time.
I think you will likely see some of them again on the show at some point. I don't know when, but we are always kind of keen to figure out when we can drop someone in to help us round out a cast or fill in a specific character. If we have someone that we need to find the right person to play, you will probably hear those people again at some point in the next year or two.
And look, if you haven't gotten your fill of Michael Fernandez, Edgelord, Shadow Master, he's on a little podcast called Roll to Seize in the Dark Heresy episodes. In the current run we're doing, he's a space marine, which is a lot of fun.
That's season 9 presently, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, he is a guest on season 9.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun playing with him on that show as well.
Is there anything else we want to discuss as for this adventure? I'm not going to ask what the magical item is that he got from Nathaniel, because either it will be revealed on the show or it is irrelevant, just sort of an interesting...
It's one of those things for sure.
But is that something that you created on your own? Did you pull that from somewhere?
Oh, I created that ring specifically on my own.
Is there anything you can tell us about how it works mechanically?
I think you get kind of an idea of it from the show, but it's a bit of it pulls power into it, right? Okay. And it can recycle that power and change that power, which I don't think we saw the full effect of in the adventure.
No, we saw it get pulled. We didn't see it get used after that.
But yeah, there's some fun stuff going on with that ring. I mean, Alaric, look, he had two very specific things that he wanted to get done there. He wanted that ring back, But knowing his character, I think a big part of it was also very much, hey, this guy messed with me. Nobody messes with me.
Yeah.
And that was him resolving that issue. So
to his satisfaction,
to his
I believe.
satisfaction. And look, Alaric, as long as you don't cross him ever, he's not going to do anything to you. He's going to be a good guy.
Well, good thing he's definitely dead and he's not in the story. What's that? I'm sorry. I'm being told that he's back in the show. I believe we killed him. Oh, that's right. At the end of season 19, he returned in ghostly form.
That's right.
And we will be seeing him again when...
Well, he's not integral to the story, right? It wasn't like you guys went on a very long mission.
A very long mission to
rescue him.
Recover his body, or his soul,
Doesn't
rather.
that make you feel good to know that you went on a really harrowing death mission to rescue Alaric Lavont?
Hey, I still have like 70-something hit points. I'm pretty okay.
That's true.
I'd be really mad if my friend had been knocked down to like 19. Oh, she was. Yeah, when that episode comes out, you will hear some opinions voiced by Sweeney, the character that I play on Friday Night Quests. I'm Mike Christensen, and I play that character.
Yeah. All of you were very pleasant to speak to him after that.
I'm sure it will all go awesome, and you'll all hear that in the new year.
We should actually talk about the new year a little bit.
We should. There are two things that we kind of need to sort of start to bring up. One of them, you're not going to hear much explored on the show, but we kind of want to tease what is going to be happening. You're not going to hear it for a few episodes, but the characters on Velvet League are going to get new epic level abilities.
Yeah, very exciting.
You have seen Horace's in action. His appeared in the season 9 finale.
And I think we showcased it visually. It's an audio podcast. But we described it, but you have not seen it in action mechanically.
True. I think we were not going to disclose the mechanics of these. We're just going to tell you the general gist of what these abilities are. So his ability, I don't know if we have a name for it yet, but basically his ability is based on Horace's very close bond with Doris.
Yeah, he's had some time to bond with that sword.
Since season 7, or end of season 6 is when he got that sword. So they've been together a long time. They know each other very well.
They're buddies.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it gives him like an armor class boost to wrap Doris around himself.
Something like that.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is. I don't have my notes in front of me.
Yeah, we can talk about the mechanics when it happens. I think next time, narratively in the story when it occurs, I think we'll dive into the mechanics of it.
Similarly, we will tell you the name of Izzy's ability. It is the Necrotic Blood Moonbeam.
Yeah. Very easy.
Go ahead and just shotgun that for your band name, and that's fine. That's fine too. And then Sweeney's ability is Sweeney's Psychic Silhouette. And I will say that involves illusions and sort of mental trickery.
Yeah. It's a very Sweeney ability.
Yes. Very much taps into his illusionist background. So.
And I'm very excited to see these epic abilities in play. It's when you guys were approaching 20 plus for a while, it's been something that I've wanted to see for a while, and it's just something that to me makes sense. It's if you get to level 20 and beyond, like, you are legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are, Mordenkainen's whatever, right? His name is on tons of different powers. Like, that dude is 20 plus, I assume, and like...
it's Mordenkainen, right?
Never. That's not how it's pronounced. Yes, Mordenkainen's thingies. And,
well, there's a lot of, like, there's Melf, there's Drowager, like, there's a bunch of... Any spell in the book that's got a name on it, a lot of those are actually people who played D&D with Gary Gygax back in the
amazing.
day. And he was just like, I'm just going to make this a person in the thing, and
you're
here we
a
go.
person now. But I just love those like named abilities, and to me that reads as like a powerful wizard or warlock or druid or whoever who was long enough that was like, okay, I've learned everything, but now I'm not satisfied. I want to start writing magic. I want to start creating magic, and to me that's some exciting stuff to do in the show.
Yeah. The other thing that we promised we would discuss in this episode, is what's going to happen on Friday Night Quests when the story of the Velvet League ends. Now,
what will happen?
Let's go ahead and refresh the audience's memory. How much Velvet League story is left?
All right. So, this is the end of our Alaric adventure, but our next season is season 20, which right after season 20 is the finale season. So, truly, we only have 2 seasons left. But to give you an idea of length, each season, as you can see from the previous one, they're going to be a little bit longer than usual. Season 20 is probably not going to be as long as season 19. That was very long. It was about 10 episodes, I believe.
It was.
While the finale will probably be about that length, though. The finale season will probably be close to 10 episodes. So you probably have anywhere between 15 to 16 around there episodes.
15 to 16.
15 to 16.
Ballpark.
That huge window of
I'm
episodes.
playing Price is Right.
Yeah. I'll take 15.1.
I don't know, 16, but I want to go over.
Yeah. So it's probably somewhere in that range, around 15, I would say, episodes left of Velvet League proper. And then the story of the Velvet League will have culminated. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in post Velvet League, we can give a little bit of news that the Velvet League characters will kind of mark the end of their story. Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about this in other aftermaths, just because it's very difficult to, like, all right, well, we've either saved the world or destroyed the world or whatever happens.
I hope we don't destroy it.
Yeah, I hope not. But basically to come back and be like, so there's a whole bunch of trolls over there, and so we'll be wrapping up the Velvet League adventure with the end of the finale. And then we actually have a really fun kind of adventure we're rolling out that's going to be between the kind of F&Q Phase 1, I guess you want to call it?
Yeah.
And then F&Q Phase 2, which is very exciting, which we'll talk about in a second. But in between Phase 1, at the end of the Velvet League story, and Phase 2, we're going to be running an adventure. The adventure is actually going to be run by Daniel Fernandez. So he's been on the show as Stu Wellington. He ran the Stu's Spooky Stories adventure. And basically, Daniel's going to be running, it's like a Cthulhu mystery.
Well, it's using the game Trial of Cthulhu. I don't know. I think we've been told Cthulhu will not be in it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a sort of supernatural mystery.
Right. And this is basically to say that this will not be a D&D, a Dungeons & Dragons game.
Yes.
So we're not only taking a pause from the Friday Night Quest Velvet League story, but we're also taking a quick pause from the system itself. Yeah. And it's not going to be for a long period of time. It's for a fun little hiatus.
It'll be a one-shot, essentially, just in a new setting, just to cleanse the palate.
Yeah.
And then when that ends, we will roll into, as you were saying, Phase 2, which will be a new campaign with new characters. It will be in the same world, though. So however the story of the Velvet League ends, they will leave an impact on the story. Hopefully it will not be a post-apocalyptic wasteland ruled by Yvette and a bunch of Slotty.
Man, who knows? That would be crazy.
We will find out. But it will be set in the same world. We'll have a new dungeon master.
Yeah.
Jay will be a player.
I will be a player this time.
And I'm going to be running that campaign. And we don't have anything we can tell you at this point. It's very early days. Our focus right now is on getting the Velvet League story correct.
Ending it on the right note.
We'll have more details as that campaign gets closer, but there will be another campaign presumably running for a similar amount of time, taking the characters from low level to an epic adventure, unless I kill them all prematurely.
Immediately.
Which is not without precedence.
Yeah, you're pretty good at it.
Go read the How We Roll articles and see what I'm talking about.
I'm terrified of you, for sure.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and if it isn't, just know that it was supposed to be. That's all I've got in terms of this season. Other than that, I think we still have the question from season 19. How dare you bring Alaric back? And we never quite got the answer on that. Let's go ahead and take that offline, though. We'll go ahead and continue having that conversation.
Folks, that's all the time we've got.
Do want to say, though, happy holidays from all of us.
Yeah.
We're about to hit Christmas and New Year's. I think Hanukkah is going on right now as well.
Bahamutmas.
And Bahamutmas, which is a movable feast. But everybody have a safe, wonderful holiday. We are taking a couple weeks off to spend some time with our family and all of the things that involve holidays. And
I have to plan all of your demises.
Yep.
So it takes a while, and I need the time for it.
I need to go eat my feelings and then make a lot of resolutions about working the weight off.
Perfect.
So it's going to be a really good time. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all in 2018.
See you then!
Huzzah!
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. The Velvet League will return on January 19th for Season 20! Once again, a big thank you to our guests for this flashback adventure. That's Heather, Alan, and Michael. Thank you so much for playing with us. You were all an absolute delight. Photos and character art can be found in the show notes on partialarc.com. And while you're there, why not check out some of our other podcasts, including Roll to Seas, where myself and Andrew Dickinger discuss the absolute madness of Warhammer 40k. If you have any questions about the show, you can email us at FridayNightQuests@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr, all under the handle Partial Arc. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the battlefield.
Yeah, I'm gonna loot the body.
So, how much experience do we get?
Well, now we have a skeleton army, so that's pretty neat.